the second thing we talked about today was graphing in vertex form. So these are our steps. Tried to make it nice and easy for you guys. The first thing we always want to do is make a table and put the vertex in the middle. Well, to do that, we need to know A, H, and K. So if I look at my equation, remember this is kind of our formula that we base everything off of, then my A is 2, I don't have an H, and my K is -6. So that H and K, that gives you your vertex. So this point is going to go in the middle of my table. To fill in the rest of my column, I'm just going to go one more to go down and one less to go up. So 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2. 0 minus 1 is -1, minus 1 is -2. Then I'm going to plug these into my calculator. And there's a couple different ways you can plug them into your calculator. If you're just going to go step by step and plug in -2, then plug in -1, then plug in 1, that's fine. Remember that if you're doing that, you're plugging it in for that x. So for example, you would have 2, plug in that -2 squared minus 6. Type that into your calculator. Then you do the same thing with the -1. And then with a 1. Then with a 2. You can also use your table feature on your calculator. So the only calculator I have with me is my graphing calculator, so that's the only one I can show you right now. But if you have questions on how to do it with your other calculator, you can always ask me or Miss Churchill. So, if you have a graphing calculator, hopefully you guys do. I know it's a big investment, and who wants to spend $100 on a calculator, but I promise you it's going to last you forever. This calculator I've had for 12 years, maybe longer. And that was after my sisters had already been using it for 4 years at least. So, it's been around for a while. It's still doing just great. So as long as you have a calculator and you take care of it, it'll take care of you and it'll last a long time. So if you have a graphing calculator, the first thing you're going to do is press Y equals. And the spot will come up for all these equations. You want to make sure that all of these are empty. You don't want anything in there. If it does have something in there, you just press clear. Like if it had 8x minus 6 and you don't want that, you just press clear and it's gone. So I'm going to type this equation into my calculator. So it starts with a 2, then it has an x. You're going to press this button that says x, t, it has a symbol for theta and n. That's the button that's going to give you your x. Then I'm going to square it, minus 6. I'm going to press enter. So this is my equation. To get the table, if you look, mine's in this yellow color. I think most of yours is in like a light blue or something. You're going to press whatever button is that color. So it should be your second button. So mine's yellow, so I'm going to press the yellow button and then table. And it gives me all these x values and all these y values. I'm going to scroll up and down until I see -2. So luckily I don't have to go too far. So when x is -2, my y is 2. So that's my y value right here. When x is -1, my y value is -4. 0, -6, it's good, that matches my table. 1, -4, and 2, 2. So you'll get these same numbers even if you type it in this way. This is just kind of like a shortcut. You can also, on your calculator, graph to make sure that your graph looks like what it should. So to get this little, see how this is all 10, 10, 10, and 10, all that directions on your calculator. If you hit zoom 6, it's going to give you a graph. So when we graph ours, it should look something like this. It doesn't have to be exact, but it should be close. So I'm just going to plot these points. So -2, 2, so -2 up 2, -1, -4, 0, -6, 1, -4, 2, 2. Remember that these values should repeat. The top one should match the bottom. That should match in the middle, should be by itself. When you connect them, they should make that U shape or that upside down U shape. So there's my graph. It's not perfect. And there's that graph. So if you ask me, I think they look pretty darn similar. So that's how you can kind of check yourself if you have a graphing calculator. Okay, so from here it's going to ask me a couple questions. The first thing is my vertex. We've been talking about vertex all day yesterday and all day today. You can look at where we wrote it up here, you can look in your table, or you can look at your graph. So my vertex is right here. That point is 0, -6. Then it wants to know, okay, is that point a maximum or is it a minimum? So if you remember, your graph can go two ways. It can be that U shape or it could be upside down. Here your vertex is at the bottom, making it a minimum. Here your vertex is at the top, making it a maximum. So for this graph, my vertex is right here, meaning it is a minimum. The axis of symmetry, this was something new that we did today. The axis of symmetry is the line that cuts it in the middle. It always goes through your vertex, it's always going to be vertical. So this is my axis of symmetry right here. I like to draw it as a dashed line so I don't get confused. Kind of bled together with my pen there. This is my axis of symmetry. If I were to take that and fold it over, it would match up over here. So your axis of symmetry is always x equals something because it's a vertical line going through the x-axis. And to find the number, you just say, okay, where does that line that I hit, where does it hit the x-axis? Well, right here, if that's 2, that would be 1, and that would be 0. So x equals 0 is my axis of symmetry. My y-intercept, remember, on your graph, that's where it hits your y-axis. So for me, that's right there, which is the same as the vertex. It's not always going to be that. And the last thing is, how many real solutions are there? So remember, that's just how many times does our graph intercept or hit the x-axis. How many times does the parabola cross the x-axis? Let's see, this one crosses it twice, crosses it over here and over here. So this has 2 real solutions. All right, and do one more with you guys. This was all from sample 1. So here my A is 1, because there's nothing out front. Remember, imaginary 1s are out front, imaginary 0s are added and subtracted. My H is 3, because it's subtracting a positive 3, and my K is 1. So that means my vertex is at 3, 1. So that goes in the middle. 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 3 minus 1 is 2, minus 1 is 1. Again, I'm going to use my table feature on my calculator. I'm going to clear out that other equation. Parentheses x minus 3, parentheses squared plus 1. If you are not using your calculator, that's fine. You would just have 1 minus 3 squared plus 1, 2 minus 3 squared plus 1, 3 minus 3 squared plus 1, 4 minus 3 squared plus 1, 5 minus 3 squared plus 1. And you actually don't need that one because you already have it filled out. So I have it typed into my calculator, then I press second table. And if I scroll down here for 1, it tells me that my y value is 5. 2 tells me that my y value is 2. 3, 1, 4, 2. And 5, 5. So I'm going to plot my points. 1, 5, 2, 2, 3, 1, 4, 2, 5, 5. And I've got my parabola. Again, if I want to compare it to my calculator, if I hit zoom 6, that looks pretty close. So it's not exact. I mean, there's no grid line here, so it's kind of hard to tell. But it's in the general area, so I think we're on the right track. My vertex, just like before, I wrote it down here. It's in the middle of my table, or I can just look at my graph. If I look at my note from earlier, this vertex is at the bottom, making it a minimum. So you can circle minimum, or you can just write it next to it. The axis of symmetry is that imaginary line that cuts it down the middle. Mine is crossing the x-axis at 3 this time. Now my y-intercept, I can't actually see on my graph. Yeah, my arrow looks like it's hitting it right about 7, but that's just a guesstimate. I just kind of like drew the arrows going out. So it's probably actually going up steeper and would probably hit somewhere more up here. So remember that to find your y-intercept, you can always plug in your 0 for x in your equation. So you can do that either using your table or just plug it in and type it into your calculator. I'm going to look back at my table. And at 0, my y-intercept is 10. Number of real solutions, remember that's how many times is the parabola across the x-axis. Well, if this is my x-axis right here, my parabola is all above it, and it's going to keep going up. So at no point in time is it going to loop back around and go below it. So there are no real solutions for this parabola.